Okay, hi guys, welcome. Come in, come in. I know that getting close to the elections, this is a very controversial topic that we're going to be bringing up tonight. I want to bring you guys in. And let me stop sharing for a second. You know, over the past 6 to 8 weeks, we have made this child grooming lobby the centerpiece of our news coverage, of our conversation, of our election coverage, of putting politicians on the spot, of all of that. We have made this the centerpiece, and that is absolutely no accident. That is completely intentional, because we have way too many politicians on both sides who want to whistle past the graveyard. We have tonight Dr. Nancy Anderson. You guys know Nancy.
Hey. Hi.
Thank you for being willing to sort of add some perspective to what we're going to be talking about tonight, because
Sure.
again, you know, we're talking about things that are, you know, political, and unfortunately they're medical and political together. That's horrifying. That's horrifying for all of us. Again, we've made this the centerpiece because, damn it, if we cannot get Republicans in the state of North Carolina to help us, we are in trouble. Tonight, I'm telling you, we are in trouble. Education First Alliance is a PAC. Yes, our mission is to get conservative candidates elected all up and down the ballot. That is true. But above that, our vocation, our mission is to save children, obviously to put education first. But Nancy, when you and I started working together and doing this stuff, you and I never dreamed that we would talk about the nexus of healthcare and K through 12 education and experiments like we're going to talk about tonight.
No, it's pretty concerning to me when you started talking about this, and when I finally looked at some of the primary evidence myself and was understanding the forest, not necessarily trees, but the whole point of view and the direction this was going, I became very concerned. Yeah.
Right. So let me give you the rundown, guys. We, about a month and a half ago, covered a story about a safe zone training. This is a training that teachers can opt into. It's run primarily in eastern part of North Carolina. It's run by ECU. Safe zone training is geared toward K through 12 teachers, administrators, counselors who can opt in to go to this training, find whatever. We did a little story, featured it, and then we got a tremendous amount of feedback, mostly from clinicians, mostly from psychologists, social workers, who were absolutely patently furious that we'd even brought it up. And then we had a couple of people contact us who had actually attended the training and said, you know, the weird thing about this, Sloan and Ed First, is that they were talking about this new clinic and talking about referrals and clinical stuff when I thought we were talking about education. We had a couple people reach out, and so we checked into it, did a little deeper digging, and we found that the same folks running the new initiative for these clinics were the exact same people that were putting themselves in front of K through 12 administrators without telling them that, hey, guess what? I represent getting patients for this new pediatric gender clinic we're running here at ECU, and I'm going to inculcate you with this gender ideology, which, by the way, it doesn't belong in K through 12. It doesn't belong in the classroom. And I don't care what anyone tells you, an overwhelming majority of voters, neighbors, people, churchgoers, hell, atheists, they don't want this stuff. So don't believe the hype, I'm telling you. So we looked into the gender clinic. And I mean, ECU, you know, to their credit, is completely out in the open with this. Okay. They don't have a problem with it. I mean, this is the centerpiece of their new convocation, et cetera. We looked this up right away and we're like, oh, okay, it's in the newspaper. It's in the East Carolinian. That is their newspaper. We're going to open this new clinic. Fine, cool. This is the main person there. Literature tells us kids can start around age 4 having their gender identity. So we don't want to exclude anybody within the pediatric realm. a big part of our goal is to provide this, A through Z, soup to nuts. By the way, they've said this in multiple places. So look, we thought, well, damn, we've got a pretty good shot maybe of having Republicans help us in that neck of the woods shut it down. To be sure, we've gone after UNC. UNC acquiesced partially. We have called out Duke. We've called out all of them. But we thought ECU is a relatively conservative place, right? So we hit up Dr. Timothy Reeder, who is a Republican on the ballot. I believe he's in House District 9 out there running against Brian Farkas. And I reached out to Tim and I said, listen, brother, help me. You're an ECU doc. You are the chair of the emergency department. You're a conservative. I know what your values are. You're also a delegate to the AMA. That's a whole nother story. You're the guy. He looked me in my face multiple times on Saturday morning when I interviewed him, multiple times. He told me flat out, ECU is not doing this clinic. How does he know? He asked the doctors involved himself, literally what he told me. He actually inferred that I should have contacted more people before writing the story. It's on their website. It's a part of their faculty convocation, which we're going to show you clips of. It's in their provider directory. It's we showed today, we're able to book appointments for these surgeries. In fact, we have a lot coming. So we have a Republican who is not being honest. Now people are going to say, oh my God, we got to get a supermajority, Sloan. What are you doing? You're tanking our efforts. If this candidate is not willing to be truthful before he gets in, if he's not willing to stand up and stop this before he gets in, my fear is he's going to whitewash this issue and put a Republican face on it. We cannot afford that. If we cannot get Republicans in the state of North Carolina to come together and to help us stop this madness, we are doomed. We are doomed, which brings me to my next person that I'm going to show you. This is the first Republican that said, hey, it ain't happening. I'm sorry. Then we've got another guy who he's referred to as the legend, right? Talk of the town. This guy, lots of money, lots of influence, owns a lot of radio stations. I mean, he's apparently the guy, right? He's the guy. Well, he had a radio show I think he was first concerned about this, as everyone is. He had a radio show on Monday. I'm going to play that for you. But basically, what I'm telling you guys is shoot the messenger is the tactic well on its way. We hoped they'd shut it down. They're choosing to shoot the messenger. Dumb choice. Here we go.
So much hangs in the balance. I mean, all this transgender surgery stuff that we're seeing. And by the way, you know, that blog that talked about that wrongly accused ECU Health of doing transgender surgeries, that blogger in Raleigh that wrote that inaccurately, and we now know that ECU Health has never done transgender surgeries, has no plans to do transgender surgery. But remember...
Okay. We have never, ever said they were doing surgeries. So do you see the little technique? We get it. So we know they're in cover-up mode. We know they're in cover-up mode. I'm going to play a little bit more.
Made comments that led everyone to believe that, you know, that ECU Health, there was going to be a push to have ECU Health start doing gender reaffirming surgeries. In other words, sex change operations, even on minors. Now, the administration of the hospital and ECU Health and the university have quickly refuted that and said there is no plan for that.
Okay. So this is a tactic, and it's very important for us to point this out tonight. This is a very commonly used tactic. It won't work, but it's what they're going to do is they're going to take something we didn't said and say, we're not going to do that, knowing damn good and well what's going on. Now, you guys know me, and you know that I'm not going to take that line down. If you call me a liar on your show, he even goes on to say you tried to get me on the show. That was a lie. I'm saying lie because it's easy for him to find the facts, he didn't want to. If you're going to tell a lie about our reporting, you're definitely going to hear from me. And he did. We're going back and forth. This is messages between me and Henry Hinton on Twitter, going back and forth, playing semantics with your words now. Look who's talking, Henry Hinton. Here we get to the real motive at why this particular Republican, let's get to the real motive. This stuff hurts the conservative cause. Uh-oh, shut up. You're hurting conservatives. Now we have legislators who want answers about something that never happened. In other words, we don't want anybody from the General Assembly sniffing around here. You know why? Because the people, you, me, all the taxpayers, just gave Brody Medical School $215 million. $215 million to expand their medical school. Now he explains it. Their intentions may be to move in this direction. But the administration is making it clear it won't happen. That's bull. And you're going to see. You should check UNC Chapel Hill and Duke, because I'm told that's where they send these folks. In other words, go away, silly girl. And I will not sit idly by as he clutches his pearls while you make insinuations about our medical school. I and others have fought too hard for it. In other words, you're hurting Republicans. You're going to get us investigated. And you're causing a lot of heat. And shut up. Well, I'm not going to shut up. Nancy's not going to shut up. A lot of us aren't going to shut up. But I'm telling all of you right now, if you think that Republicans are a panacea for this evil that ills us, you are woefully misinformed. And I am sorry. I am sorry. I have to tell you that tonight. We have to share that with you tonight. Just because somebody has an R behind their name does not mean they're going to help us out of this situation. It's going to be Nancy, you and me, and hope to God, 10,000 others. You know, the great thing about Mark Robinson is you never have to guess where he stands. You'll never have to guess. He's not going to say, I don't support that, and it's not happening. There were some.
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite quote from Michael Malice, pundit I listen to, is conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit. And here's the prime example where, you know, just because someone has an R next to their name, they're saying, trust me, and I can call out, you know, this crazy woman in Raleigh who's just getting clickbait and all of this stuff, and it's not really happening, and there are no plans to happen. Meanwhile, it's happening, and there are plans for it to continue and expand, which has been approved by the dean of the medical school. So he's really just a conservative driving the speed limit in terms of progressivism, allowing this stuff to happen and trying to whitewash it and sweep it under the rug so legislators don't ask questions.
Well, I would like to take the unusual step of issuing an apology, which, you know, Nancy, I will do if I really believe it. And I will also do it tongue in cheek. You, our faithful audience, need to decide which of the techniques I'm deploying right now. If you're listening, Mr. Hinton, I am sorry that I called you a paid whore for ECU. I apologize for doing that. I'm so, well, I think I was dead on the money. Because while our children are suffering, this is what you're doing. Let me tell you why Nancy and I just are putting a hard target on here. Number one, this is a program that is going through the K through 12 schools that we're aware of. UNC doesn't have a similar program. We want to know if they do. Duke does not. And Charlotte Levine's Children's Clinic does not. We could be totally wrong. And when we find out, if we find out, you better believe we're going to be on it. Number one. Number two, we just spent $215 million. And the idea behind it was to train up more rural doctors, which we have a dearth of them right now. We have a crisis. This is misappropriation. And number three, we have conservatives covering up for this. So this is the story. This is the story, because we're depending on Republicans to go in there and show these people something. Well, we're running into a brick wall. So I'm going to get these movies up, Nancy, while you, one thing I do want to point out, Nancy, now that you're here, you can speak to this. This Henry Hinton, he says this sex change thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want, and let me throw this up as you're talking. There are steps to a sex change operation. Mm-hmm. And so you tell us how right we actually are on this sex change thing.
Well, I think, you know, that article, first of all, published in the ECU campus newspaper, defined the treatment plan, which is hormone, medical and surgical treatment, or it was like something like that. So they defined it within themselves as, for their own sake, as treatments via hormone and via surgery for sex change. So I definitely think that if you are going on puberty blockers to delay puberty and hormone treatments to change your gender, that can be classified as a sex change treatment. We know from pediatric endocrinologists that were just exposed via Christopher Rufo, who gave TED Talks a few years ago, that there is an irreversible component to these hormones and puberty blockers. The Stanford pediatric endocrinologist said so, to the point of, if you give them at a certain point in adolescence, their testes won't even develop. Boys' testes won't even develop. He won't develop sperm, so you might as well just do the surgery before they're even 18 and removing the testes. So as far as I'm concerned, the hormone therapy can lead to irreversible changes, which would be a sex change.
Dr. Reeder said that, to his credit. I want to be very clear. Dr. Timothy Reeder is adamantly opposed to these hormones, and I totally believe him. Henry Hinton is adamantly opposed to this treatment, and I believe him. We're all on the same page here. Look, we universally agree that this is evil. It's the tolerance that's the problem. Right. I'm not going to tolerate it.
Right. I think him trying to split hairs and turn it into, oh, we're saying they're doing surgeries on 4-year-olds isn't really accurate. What we're saying is these doctors are saying that they're willing to see patients, you know, with gender questions, however that comes up, from the age of 4 on in pediatrics, and they have, as part of their treatment program, listed on their websites and other places, including that article, hormone therapy. So that's talking about changing the sex of a kid.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. And they're very upfront about it. And by the way, you know us, if you think that we just have stuff that's just written down and we're just using open source stuff and that's the end of it in a story of this magnitude, you're wrong.
Right.
We have a lot more. And we're trying, by the way, I reached out to Henry Hinton today and I asked him to come on the show. He didn't. I asked Timothy Reeder for a comment. He won't. So, this is, by the way, this is just one transgender care center. This is one of the oldest, most venerable cross-sex surgery places. Go to Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, Boston Children's Hospital, all of them. These are the steps. So social transition, we know this, changing your pronouns, maybe, you know, changing your name, whatever. Okay, fine. The medical/surgical transition, hormone therapy. So when you are changing your gender, look at Medicaid, look at Blue Cross Blue Shield, look at all the providers, all of them. They require a minor, an older person to be on hormone therapy for at least 12 months. In other words, the critical bridge is having those hormones. And that is exactly what this Pride Clinic does. We have verified for children as young as 13. We got it coming. So in other words, they're saying that we're making it up, and you know that's not true. So let's go to those shots, if I can go ahead and get that up, of these movies where this was shared. This is a faculty convocation. In other words, to give you an idea of this magnitude, a convocation happens at the beginning of every school year. Okay. When you're looking at this, I believe on your left, maybe on your right, but the guy that's sitting looking, he looks like kind of Dr. Drew Pinsky. He's over there. He's got the white tie, etc. That's the chancellor of ECU. Now, this chick is going to explain. And by the way, her role is she's head of, get this, pediatric research. So she's the one that's getting the patients for research. Let her explain what the direction of the entire university is going to entail.
And on the screen is kind of our four overarching themes. To dig into each of those a little bit, our primary purpose is to provide clinical care. We're going to accomplish this in a number of ways, but the first place is we're establishing what we call a pride clinic. So this clinic is staffed by two amazing physicians, as well as a mental health grad student, so that we can provide integrated care. Everybody is welcome there. It's housed in internal medicine pediatrics, so to be very technical, they can see the full range of children to adults. And it's focused on primary care at the moment, but the goal is to expand that to other areas of specialty care that patients need.
Okay. So she's saying it for basically God and everybody to hear. I'm just going to play this one more clip because I want you guys to understand the gravity of what we're talking about here. When we talk about the implications for it to be inside of primary care versus other ones. And actually I messed that up. And so she goes on to say that we want to give kids a safe place to come here and to come out as gay first to us before the parents.
Right. Yeah, no, she made the comment in that I clipped that she wanted the kids to have a place to go where if they're not ready to come out to their parents, they can talk to someone else first.
At ECU.
And then also, I just want to reiterate again, the clip that you did play, Sloan, it says they're starting with clinical care and primary care, which on their website lists the hormone treatments, but the goal to expand into other specialties. I believe Mr. Hinton said there was no plan to expand or make it bigger, according to his radio show. But here we have the exact opposite being said in front of the chancellor of the university.
Correct. I mean, look, this is a real centerpiece for them, is this clinic. It's a huge centerpiece. And the only people, I want you to understand when we say this, the only people that are covering this up or trying to cover it up, ironically, are Republicans that are outside of the actual university itself, it seems, who are more interested in keeping either their cash cow going or their gravy train or their reputations or whatever. ECU is loud and proud, and they've got no intentions on changing this, Nancy. That's very clear. I mean, in real time, we're able to schedule. We're not going to give too much away. We've got a lot coming, but in real time, we are able to do things as if that ECU does not care. They've been very upfront. I want you to know in that faculty convocation over and over again saying, we need to get patients. We need to get patients. We need to get patients. We need to market. We need to advertise. We need to advertise. That's what they said. All right. So I want to tell you that ECU is going not with, but against the trend. They may think that they're on trend, but they're not. They are not. This is from Reuters on Thursday. They did a deep dive into these hormones and this transgender care, et cetera. And I got to tell you, half of this is a great expose. Half of it kind of sounds like, Nancy, either you or I talking, but it was there. And here's what this woman said, which should give you shockwaves. I'm afraid that what we're getting are false positives, and we're subjected to them to irreversible physical changes. This is a clinical psychologist who used to work for the San Francisco gender clinic, the one that I just put up there. So it just showed you a slide of the steps of transition. She's come out and say there's, errors in judgment or fodder for the naysayers. That would be you and I, who want to eradicate this care. That's true. And this is a transgender woman who still treats children with gender dysphoria.
Yeah. And it correlates with the Cass report from England that brought down the Tavistock gender clinic in England.
Did you notice though, in that last slide, that she was censored and they after she spoke out, she resigned and they removed her from the board of that organization. And they said, hey, we're going to put a gag order. You guys
scary
can't
stuff. Scary stuff. There
Um,
should be open discussion about the most controversial issues, and this is the most controversial medical issue, and why you would want to silence anyone in terms of what they've seen, especially from their personal experience, when they're interested in providing these treatments. I don't understand.
some of the most vehement critics of grooming children and doing this to children are transgender themselves. I mean, women and, you know, transgender men and women living their lives as that. And they have been very open about that. Gay people have been, in fact, increasingly critical of this um, because they know the damage.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this before. It is my belief that this sort of hormone treatment, et cetera, which has irreversible changes. And as I understand, 6 months of this treatment will shrivel up a guy's testicles to nothing. I believe that this is a way to eradicate gay people altogether, because what it is, and we've seen this in South Africa before with the military in the 80s. So we've seen this before where, you know, the psychologists will come in and say, hey, you're not really gay. You're just a woman. Yeah, that's it. And then start this process. And it's very dangerous for that. And I also believe that the practice is going after children with learning disabilities. I know that this program in particular, in the safe zone training in Pitt County, it seems to be an overrepresentation of school administrators from Title I schools, high poverty schools that are already academically tanking, et cetera. To be clear, these teachers are opting in for the training. But it begs the question, how or if they're being targeted to join this. To be clear, we don't know, but it definitely raises an alarm for me. Okay, now going on from Reuters, in Europe, as you were talking about Tavistock, concern that too many children might be unnecessarily put at risk in countries like Finland and Sweden. France, you can add France to that, now limit access to care. Well, there's their bias again. I would argue that healthcare does not mean shriveling up testicles, chopping off breasts, or giving minors hysterectomies. That's just me. The FDA has not approved these very dangerous drugs for use in children for gender dysphoria. Lupron is can be used for a chemical castration drug for men with advanced stage prostate cancer. And you're using it in minors. And let's talk about this. The two doctors in question at ECU, tell us about what kind of doctors they are, because we don't know. We think all doctors are the same. What's the distinction?
So my biggest concern with this was when I saw these two doctors, they're the one, Dr. Dendy, whose picture you showed earlier, is Med Peds, which means Medicine Pediatrics Residency, which means, so the residency is you are a doctor, you're training under the umbrella of normally a university program, but there are private programs too. And you do the years directed in training towards your specialty. So for example, I trained in general surgery and became board certified in general surgery, though I don't practice now. My training was 5 years of general surgery, and I also did a 2-year stint of bench research. So it was 7 years total. Internal medicine training is generally 3 years, and a lot of people do an additional 1 year of like a chief residency or a senior residency. So it can be anywhere from 3 to 4 years. Pediatrics, the residency training is 3 years. Med Peds is a specialty where they do both medicine and pediatrics in their training. It's 2 years of medicine, adult medicine, and 2 years of pediatrics mixed together throughout those 4 years. And the reason you would do that is basically to be able to follow chronic disease patients with chronic diseases from their childhood into adulthood. So like diabetes or cystic fibrosis, metabolic disorders, that type of thing.
Can I just jump right in and ask you this? And so if you're putting it in that clinic, this particular care, does that suggest that you are setting let's say a 13-year-old up for a chronic care model of treatment?
Yes, absolutely. That would be absolutely, because you would say that your background is you have experience with both treating kids and adults. So this Colby Dendy, I believe, and she just finished a couple years ago. So she's only been in practice on her own, for 2 years. So since residency finished. So she had 4 years of residency training, which was a 2 years total of pediatric training. There are some electives in that, like a month where you could elect to go follow or go work in an asthma clinic or something like that. We don't know what electives she did. Maybe she did pediatric endocrinology, but she never did a fellowship. She never specialized after her residency in pediatric endocrinology. And when you go to, say, the UNC gender care website or the Stanford website or Yale, the people who are at the center of these gender clinics are pediatric endocrinologists, or people who have at least had issues or experience, not issues, but experience treating things like maybe precocious puberty or congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or sexual development disorders.
In layman's terms, that means a child is born with both sets of equipment.
Or hormones that don't jive with their, equipment, or, so they do have already some experience, because this is a very specific, specialized field. That those terms I just mentioned are basically like, I don't know, we joke like they're going to be on your boards just to say that you've like heard of them. Unicorn never really sees it, kind of thing.
What we would call a unicorn anomaly.
Yeah. It was very rare. And so you'd want someone specialized, who's seen the effects of these drugs there, who knows about them, who's done, is usually a part of an academic fellowship. There's research involved, whether it's clinic or basic science. I looked up this Colby Dendy in PubMed. I saw nothing. That's the medical database for research publications.
She hasn't published any research.
Right. Translation services in hospitals or something. But so basically there's no indication via her training or her non-existent research trial that she's in any way qualified to prescribe hormones to kids when it's already not determined, that we already don't have good data on how this affects gender dysphoria in the long run. So that was very concerning to me, that there's no pediatric endocrinologist associated with this clinic. And I think the other woman is
woke medicine. This is woke medicine on children.
Well, it's a little scary to me. And it's scary to me. And then the other doctor, I think she's been in practice longer. I think she's been in practice at least a decade or so. And I believe she's also med peds, or she might be family practice. But either one is, family practice is 1 year of pediatrics, 1 year of internal medicine, 1 year of OB-GYN. So you can kind of do a little bit of all of that. But neither one is a board certified pediatrician. Like neither one is, I think
Dendy might be. Let me look.
Maybe she did. But either way, it's they're not specialists in endocrinology in any way, shape, or form. And I hadn't really come across that yet when I've seen some of the things coming out of UNC, or like, I may not like some of the resources that UNC has in their gender clinic, and I find it kind of activist oriented. But when I look at their program, I'm like, well, at least they have a pediatric endocrinologist at the center of things. Unless I'm in the room with her seeing exactly what she's doing, I can't say that, she isn't trying to do the right thing or that type of thing. But it would scare me to know that someone who's not a pediatric endocrinologist is kind of trying this out a couple years after they finished residency. Yeah. I don't get that at all. in my personal opinion.
Well, one thing that Henry Hinton did say, again, that's the guy, the shock jock down in the talk of the town in Pitt County. He said something that really scared the hell out of me. And he said that, and this is, I've heard it 2 places today, in addition, that these are faculty members who have gone rogue. When you're talking about the concept of physicians treating children with off-label hormones with black box warnings, rogue doctors, to me, that scares the hell out of me. That sounds like something you would want to rein in the end of this day. It's not something you would want to say, well, it's not happening, and kick the can down the road. And by the way, that is an inaccurate statement, to say the least. Because you just saw the chancellor sit on stage with an enormous faculty convocation where you heard them talk about the clinic. This is not rogue, Nancy.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing, and the wave to the future, and very likely what our 215 million plus will go to fund in the future.
Yeah, well, it also concerns me because, having trained in medicine here in the state at UNC, or trained in surgery at UNC, the reputation, my understanding anyway, was that ECU medical school and residency had, kind of a focus on primary care, generalists, even general surgeons, or people who could do a diverse array of things for rural, for community-based kind of rural practice, because we have such a lack of that type of physician in this country. We are in a massive shortage. And they even have a section, I think I sent to you today, Sloan, in their website about how they want to focus on trying to get medical students and trainees into these primary care fields so that they can fill this void.
That's how they got
now they're going to redirect them into being, prescribing hormones for kids. This doesn't make any sense.
Well, look, that's how they got our money, you guys. They got our money. They got the 215K plus, or million, 215 million. Sorry. It's been a long day. You can attest to that. It's been they got that money for a good cause, right? That we need more rural doctors. And that's really what they were trying to have and solve the problem for. Here's another disturbing thing. We're going to do Medicaid expansion. That's just what's getting ready to happen. Republicans are in on it. Timothy Reeder, the guy who's running for House, he's been lobbying for it for 2 years. Medicaid covers these procedures. Medicaid covers the hormones. The state health plan covers the hormones. So now we're going to pay, taxpayers also going to pay again for something that is absolutely not medically necessary. And that's why I'm telling you, do not think Republicans are the solution. Do not think that. We are telling you as a PAC, right? We don't back a lot of candidates. We back the ones we think are going to do best. What we're talking about should not be a political issue. But I think on both sides, they're making it a political issue. And Nancy, for us, we equate stopping this madness with the Republican Party. In North Carolina, that is simply not what we have. We've seen that with Catherine Truitt and the way that she runs the DPI, and she does the exact same thing. We'll catch her doing critical race theory. We'll catch her doing SEL, etc. She blames the messenger. Sloan is a liar. Nancy's a liar. And this, now we're getting to serious stuff that has permanent repercussions. So this is a pattern in practice, and there's going to have to be certain Republicans or Democrats, I don't care, that's going to stand up and say, no. Human nature, Nancy, at some point has got to kick in with people, and they're going to say, I'm going to make this a hill worth dying on, because for us, it sure is.
Yeah. And it's really scary that we have, supposedly prominent Republicans in Eastern North Carolina saying there are no plans, for ECU to expand on this clinic or expand, into this stuff or into surgeries or whatever. And when you have, a formal convocation where they're saying, we have a whole plan for this, and we're going to get med students into this clinic, and we're going to get residents into this clinic, and we're going to expand into other specialty areas. And this is just the beginning, and this is revolutionary. I mean, she used the term revolutionary. And my opinion personally, if I had to interpret this, is, we've seen the transgender thing grow, obviously, and you know, we have UNC developing their gender clinic and Duke developing their gender clinic, but it's still a tertiary care center. You still have specialists there and a team. Now, these doctors, these med peds doctors who aren't specialists, are wanting to bring it into primary care, meaning that any doctor, you don't have to have a specialty in pediatric endocrinology. You don't have to have that kind of credential. You don't have to have any research in your background. You can just open up a primary care clinic and offer these treatments and go for it, because that's what they said. They're gonna be bringing med students through here so they can bring it into their practices, and this is the model now to get the hormone treatments and potentially other treatments, to bring it to the everyday doctor on the corner outside of the tertiary care center, so that any doctor has a stake in, you know, the money involved with hormone therapy and this market. They're trying to get into the market of this and bring it so you don't even have to be a specialist in it.
Well, they said that they've already done this at Goldsboro. They've already taught them how to do it. We've seen this before with OxyContin. So many players in here at every level. It's in the education, it's the incentivizing, etc. And what you're talking about is pill mills, where it would be in the proper domain of pain management specialist. And now it's gone back to that, but a specialist, to your point, someone who could not only diagnose, but manage. The management is critical, because these drugs will kill your ass. We know this. And so what I hear you saying is the possibility that ECU is doing is so freaking lethal, because it is populating these pill mills, people that don't know really what they're doing. And
they're bringing it to the primary care setting. So in theory, your family practitioner could go through 3 years of training in various, you know, in OB-GYN, peds, and medicine, and without any kind of subspecialization or research, could say, well, I did a couple of months rotating through this clinic, so I'm experienced, I can prescribe hormones, and just open up shop and say, hey, I'm going to treat, you know, kids to adults, and am capable and willing to prescribe hormones, just like doctors who thought they could just prescribe narcotics, you know.
They were being lied to also. I mean,
hardline narcotics without any blowback. So it's concerning to me, because at least kind of what I've seen is, all right, well, there's a team, they're specialized, they've got experience. I don't like the resources. It's not, you know, what I would do or I would train in, but.
And that would be UNC and Duke, is that correct?
Yeah. And then also too, is my question is, I mean, the transgender, the transgender thing has exploded. Like we saw with the Tavistock, you know, they said initially they had 50 referrals in 2009, and last year they had 2,500. Like, it's beyond biology at this point. Like there's another driver. It was so rare before that I know academic pediatricians in tertiary care centers who never saw one in like 35, 40 years of practice. Never saw one kid.
It's dangerous. And that's why it's so dangerous to have this in schools, guys. What we're trying to
because they're creating a market. You have to create a market for it. Sorry, but that's what I was getting to. Is like, it's so rare, but you're going to bring it to primary care physicians so that they can do it, and it's so important that all these residents and medical students rotate through this new clinic and blah blah blah. Well, how are you going to have a market for it unless you market it and bring it to kids? And they already have that in place with this safe zone training that they're inviting teachers and principals to.
Which brings us full circle.
Right.
This is a dangerous program, because here we have, you guys, and I want you to hear what I'm telling you, because I don't talk about this a lot. I have a background in surgery stuff. For 9 years, I was a medical rep, and I was in the OR constantly. I must have been in at least 2,500 cases, at least, of everything you can imagine, from open heart surgery to trauma surgeries, whatever. So I've seen a lot of this stuff, which, you know, I mean, it's surgical stuff is, you know, it's very invasive, right? We're talking about irreversible stuff. So do not let anyone tell you that, oh, it's just hormones.
Right.
Well, that is woefully incorrect. And I think that that stuff is starting to emerge. Oh, it's not Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, right. They were doing the surgeries. Well, let me tell you something. We never were in the operating room in Vanderbilt. They didn't have that data. They only had a doctor talking about it in a lecture. We didn't have it. There was no evidence. Let me tell you something. We have more evidence with this ECU case than they ever thought about having with Vanderbilt. We actually have websites that are up and still up, and newspaper articles and all of this stuff. And by the way, so much more. So the evidence is overwhelming. It's a fact. We need people to stand up. It is before the elections. It's at a tipping point. So let me tell you what you can do. So we talked about a lot tonight, right? The dangerousness of the program, the unpreparedness of the doctors who are doing this, right? We know of at least 3 lawyers who are looking into putting together class action lawsuits for families who are duped, not here, to be clear, not here, but other places, families that might be duped in this type of training and this stuff being given. So we know that this is happening. The most important thing is, guys, we have folks, we're not pulling in the same direction. And I don't know how to get there, but all I can do is point it out. And so we have a couple of please do's. Whoopsies. Okay. So we have to demand. We have got to have the Youth Protection Act, 18 years and under. It has to be illegal. These are the numbers I want you to call. Now, send them to your friends. Do it. If you're alumni, we want to have a close your wallet campaign. Oh, dang it. A close your wallet campaign. Take your money back. Do not give to this practice. Our tax dollars are already going to this against our will. Take the money back. Close your wallet. Call these guys. We are not going to wait for legislation to be passed. We have to have help. And if you're listening, Timothy Reeder, if you are listening, Mr. Hinton, again, all joking aside, I was heated when I went back and forth with you. And I'm very angry and I'm very let down. You have a very strong voice out there in Pitt County, and I am very upset that you're not using it to shut this down. This is dangerous. So if you're listening, Mr. Reeder, Mr. Hinton, please join our cause. Right now, you're part of the problem. I don't want that. We need more help, not less help. We are not the enemies here. We need to remember who the real enemies are. And so to that end, we need you guys to share this with 10 people, groups, people. We are getting shadow banned everywhere. Facebook, Twitter's down to a crawl. We are on Rumble. We are looking at getting more distribution platforms. We have got to have your help. I mean, it's down to us. You've seen our leaders have failed us.
Yeah. And I'm happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability. Like I said, I don't practice currently, but I know all about training and years of experience and research and all of that stuff. So if anyone needs help breaking that down, again, what concerns me are these are not fellowship trained pediatric endocrinologists. They are internal medicine and pediatric primary care docs who 2 years out of residency decided to try up this experiment and get into the market of trans treatments, and they're trying it on kids. And we know that for a fact, and we're able to make appointments and talk about gender hormone therapies and that type of thing. And that's just not okay. And it's not what our university should be focused on right now at all.
No, absolutely not. And everyone knows it. By the way, everyone knows it. This may not be receiving a lot of coverage in Pitt County, but let me assure you, everyone is talking about it. We have very good people who want to do the right thing, who are helping us at all levels everywhere. This is not an us versus anyone thing. And while we are very spirited in our debate here, and we'll continue to be so, we know that this word needs to get out, because this is not something that is okay with almost anyone. This is political season. This is the issue. You got a guy there named Greg Murphy, who is also a congressman. He's also at ECU. He is the only practicing physician in the Congress. He needs to take action. Now's the time. You know, people can talk about having values. You will never know what kind of values a person has until they have the opportunity to test those values. It is unacceptable for someone to say, I'm not for this, I don't want this, and then lie and say it's not happening.
Yeah, that's the worst kind of thing. And like I've said through this process, if we can't hold our own accountable, if we can't hold the people who supposedly have the same values and the same goals, then how can we possibly expect to hold the left accountable? I mean, if like people in our own, or
We can't.
share the same values and kind of want to see the same common sense approaches to things, if they aren't willing to put the money where their mouth is, and we can't hold them accountable, then how is anything going to change? Or how are we going to restore sanity in any area? And if they don't know they're going to be called out, then it makes it easier for them to hide and not tell the truth. So someone's got to call them out and say, hey, what are you doing here, buddy? Because this is happening, and we're happy to hand you all of our research, and we can tell you all about it. We're the messenger. We can break it down for you. What can you do to call attention to this? And that should be welcomed. I don't understand.
They don't want to be canceled. Well, they don't want to be canceled. We have got to get some men and women to restore order in this country now. We have to have people who are willing to have fake criminal charges put on them, be sued, have their names slandered all over the place. All of that has happened to yours truly. And I don't care, because this is the truth. This is what we do every day as an occupational hazard. We need more people. I'm not saying like me. We need more people that are far more powerful than we are here at Education First Alliance. We have to have people to help us. And that's why this is very disappointing to have a kind of show like this, but here we are. We need to come together one last time as we close this out. Let's put this, our action item here. Would you share this, guys?
What's the last name of that Chris? Because it
I know.
It goes off the screen. Do you know?
Oh, it's, dang it. Dyba, D-Y-B-A.
Okay. So that's his last name.
Chris Dyba, I apologize.
Or Dyba. Okay.
The good news, here's some good news. People are talking, everybody's talking. We've heard from a number of donors, of rather large donors, that they're not going to be donating and that they have registered their complaints. We would love to get all the donors to pull their funding. We'll be talking about having some in the legislature look at clawing back some of their funding, because clearly this is a big initiative for ECU, and clearly we don't want our tax dollars used this way.
Exactly. And I mean, it works. Like, just PayPal in 1 week, from release of the information about how they were going to charge people if they said stuff they didn't like. And within 1 week, enough people were so angry and canceled and called and raised heck that they backpedaled. The same can happen to universities. They love money, and you start calling and saying, I was thinking about giving, but I heard about this, and you don't know, they can easily backpedal. It's in the early stages, this clinic. It's easy to backpedal it and prevent this from being brought to kids, and get our legislators interested and say, hey, what's going on here, ECU? Why is this a priority? And why, what are you doing here?
The time is now. We have more to come. We have more direct evidence, irrefutable evidence. I can tell you, believe me when I tell you, this clinic is up and running. It's going strong. It is happening. It needs to stop. And we're not going to stop until we bring this stuff to a halt. We will start at ECU. We have others outside of the state that we're working with, and I'm telling you, we are going to shut this down. Believe it. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Have a lovely rest of your evening. Nancy, how many people are they supposed to share it with?
10.
How many groups?
10.
Guys,
I don't know. I feel like mini me up here. I'm like the little like fly in the room, like
You're-
buzzing around.
you're a major me. You're not you're killing it. Oh, one more thing I wanted to tell you. Greg Murphy is, I believe, chair of the House Republican Doctors Conference. He's an ECU doctor.
Caucus, yeah.
Get on this, Greg.
Yeah.
Tell
Get on it.
Tim and Henry to join us.
Yep.
We're not so bad.
Yeah.
We're on the right side of this issue and we have the facts. We
Yep.
know what's up. So,
Yep.
all right, guys, have a good night.